بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لو خرجوا فيكم ما زادوكم إلا خبالا ولأوضعوا خلالكم يبغونكم الفتنة وفيكم سماعون لهم والله عليم بالظالمين صدق الله العلي العظيم آمنا بالله ورسله. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When one looks into the Islamic history, one would notice that the process of da'wah went through two main stages of conflict. The first stage was basically during the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was referred to as the conflict of Tanzil, meaning the conflict of revelation of the Holy Quran. The second stage began with the era of the Khilafah of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, and it was referred to as the conflict of Ta'wil, the interpretation of the Holy Quran. During the first stage, the conflict was centered around the revelation of the Holy Quran by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where you find that the disbelievers of Quraysh and their allies, they tried their best to fight the revelation of the Quran by any means possible. And one would notice that this conflict ended with the victory of the Prophet ﷺ, and the religion was being spread in the region. Now one might think that the disbelievers of Quraysh and their allies accepted the defeat. Yet when we focus into the historical events and we look carefully into history, we would notice that such forces, what they did is that they just retreated from the front lines of the conflict. And what they did is that they joined the movement and they tried to infiltrate the religion from within by ruining its foundation and by trying to infiltrate its teachings. Yet, one would also notice that there was another group from the Muslims that they were aware, they were far-sighted about this plot. And thereupon, when they stood up to it, and thereupon began the second stage of conflict, as we refer to as the conflict of Ta'wil, the interpretation of the Holy Quran. And as we said earlier, that it started with the era of the Khilafah of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Yet the pinnacle of that conflict was in the two main battles, Siffin and Karbala. And may Allah have mercy on Ammar ibn Yasir Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. When he was asked by some companions on the battle of Siffin as to why are you fighting on the side of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam against Muawiyah, Ammar ibn Yasir replied, and he said what? He said, do you see that black banner in front of me? And then he pointed at the banner that was carried by Amr ibn al-As. He said, this is the banner of Amr ibn al-As. And then he continued, I had fought against it alongside the Prophet ﷺ 3 times. And this is the 4th time. And by God, it is the most wicked and most evil out of all of them. Imagine what Ammar ibn Yasir is referring to. Is that the stage, the conflict of Ta'wil that is occurring is in fact the most dangerous one, even more dangerous than the conflict of Tanzil. And we all know the famous narration by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he tells Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, Ya Ali, ana uqatilu ala tanzil wa anta tuqatilu ala ta'wil. O Ali, that I shall fight over the revelation of the Holy Quran and you shall fight over the interpretation of the Holy Quran. Meaning that he's preparing Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam that there shall be a conflict right after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and indeed it will be a dangerous one. And one can realize that in every conflict there exists 3 sides, and I want you to focus on this, is that there are 3 sides that exist in every conflict. The first side are the 2 groups fighting against each other. And the third side are the ones who stay on the side, the ones who watch and observe. And indeed, this is considered the most complex side out of all of them. Why? As you would notice that when 2 groups are fighting against one another, each one of them took a stance. Now, regardless who's on truth and who's on falsehood, yet you know that each one of them took a stance. Yet the confusing part is that third side, that you don't know what do they really stand for in particular, right? And you would notice that the third side existed throughout history, be it with the messengers before the Prophet ﷺ, and even during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, that you would notice that during the battles of the Prophet, that there are many companions that would always take that neutral side. Some of them would even stay on the sides. Some of them wouldn't even engage in battle. And some of them wouldn't even listen to the Prophet ﷺ when he would be preparing an expedition. Take for example what occurred with the Prophet in Uhud, is that when almost all the companions left the Prophet ﷺ on the battlefield alone, except with few companions. Or even what occurred during Hunayn, that you would notice that during the battle of Hunayn, many companions decided to stay behind. They didn't even join the battle. Why? Because they were scared of the two tribes, Thaqif and Hawazin, right? So you notice that that side always existed, that even after the Prophet ﷺ, or else what led to the, basically, to the whole plot against Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Wasn't there important characters that decided to take that neutral side and not stand up for the truth and speak up? That led to Sayyidah Zahra salawatullah wa salam alayha speak up about her haqq inside the masjid. And that side always existed. And you would even notice that even after, that for example, take on the ones in Jamal, or even the ones in Saffin, or the ones in Nahrawan, or even in Karbala. And you would notice that that side always existed. And mainly when it comes to when it came to the Battle of Tabuk, in the Battle of Tabuk, that's when that third neutral side was very outspoken, that even against the Prophet's commands himself. You will notice that in the Battle of Tabuk, the Prophet ﷺ was preparing an expedition to fight the Roman Empire, or the Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire in Tabuk. And the Prophet ﷺ announced it, and he urged all the companions to join the campaign, and even the allies of Rasulullah ﷺ. It is narrated in history that the amount of people that stayed behind in Medina was basically equal to the amount of people that joined the army of Rasulullah ﷺ. Some narrations suggest that 30,000 stayed behind, isn't it? So they decided to be that third side. And that third side is indeed very dangerous. And even worse, more dangerous than the two sides, as we said, is that you can know your enemy when they take their stance. But the ones that stay in the middle, these are the ones that you should expect some hidden agendas from them. And that's really what occurred in Tabuk. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah At-Tawbah, He made sure to expose such hypocrites in the Medina. And that's why Surah At-Tawbah is referred to as Surah Al-Fadiha. One of the names of Surah At-Tawbah is Surah Al-Fadiha. Meaning what? Meaning that the surah that exposed the munafiqeen in Medina. And tonight what we will do, inshallah, is that we will further discuss this topic depending on the following points. The first one is that let's further analyze that third side in order for us to understand better. The second point, inshallah, will be what was the significance of the Battle of Tabuk and why was it considered one of the turning points in Islamic history, and what are the main events that occurred during the Battle of Tabuk. The third point is that what was the very significant hadith that Rasulullah ﷺ said upon his departure from Medina to Tabuk. And number four is that who really murdered Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Was it an action done solely by Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam al-Muradi? Or no, there were factors, and in fact there were personas involved in the assassination of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And let's start with the first point. And as we said earlier, is that the two sides are clear in every conflict. Now that's the third side, and we said that it's the most confusing one of them. So let's understand, in order for us to understand historical events, what historians do is that they focus on that third side. And they study as to what factors led them to take that neutral position. And in order for us to understand the third side better, let's separate that third side into two groups. The first group are the ones who know where the truth is, but do not have the courage to take a stance. And that always occurred. And I gave an example about Hunayn, for instance, and about Uhud, for instance, and other occasions, such as, for example, take in Jamal and Siffin, is that you notice many companions stayed behind. That even Siffin, there are companions that decided to take that neutral side. Take, for example, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. During the Battle of Siffin, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam would sit on the Minbar of Kufa, and he would urge the Muslimin, the Kufans, and the rest of the companions to join the battle against Muawiyah. On the other hand, you would notice that Abu Musa al-Ash'ari would also sit on the Minbar and would say that this is an unjust war and it is haram to take a part in it. Imagine, or even take for example a persona like Hassan al-Basri. Hassan al-Basri one time was in the masjid when Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was in the masjid also, and they were both performing wudu. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam looks at Hassan al-Basri and he notices that he's wasting a lot of water. He looks at him and he says, you know, you're wasting a lot of water in your wudu. And as you know, that you need to be very careful when it comes to using water properly. That you shouldn't be wasteful when it comes to water or the ni'am, the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And mainly in your wudu. Now Imam Ali alayhi salam looks at Hassan al-Basri and he tells him that you're wasting water. Hassan al-Basri replies back to Imam Ali alayhi salam. What does he tell him? He tells him, well, the same way you wasted, or the same way you were reckless when it comes to the blood of the Muslimin, referring to the battles of Jamal, Siffin and Nahrawan. Subhanallah, Hassan al-Basri wants to teach Imam Ali his taklif, and he wants to give him a fiqh lesson. Imagine, Imam Ali replies back by saying what? And focus on this, because there's many Hassan al-Basris nowadays. Yes, Imam Ali alayhi salam looks back at Hassan al-Basri and he says that to every nation there is a Samiri. Yes? And indeed, he is the Samiri of this ummah. The difference is that the Samiri, he continued, that the difference is that the Samiri of Nabi Musa's nation says La Misas, and the Samiri of the ummah of Muhammad says La Qital. Yes? So that's the first group. The group that know where the truth is, but they don't have the courage to take a stance. And one of the interesting things that you would notice, that even when Imam Hussein alayhi salam wanted to begin his uprising, what he did is that he met with many icons that are considered icons from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een in Medina and in Mecca. He met with them, and you will notice that it's documented in history that Imam Hussein alayhi salam even met with Abdullah ibn Zubayr, Abdullah ibn Umar, and Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Bakr. When he met with them, he told them that, you know what, each one of you comes from a history of jihad in Islam. Each one of you has a father who was considered a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. Both of you, your fathers were khulafa in the ummah of Muhammad, and therefore I would like you to join me. And now there's a greater threat on the religion of Islam, which is Yazid. And I want you to join me in my uprising. It is narrated that they all sympathized with Imam Hussein, and they all agreed with the reasons and the motive of his uprising, yet none of them joined. Interesting, it's even narrated that Abdullah ibn Umar hugged Imam Hussein and cried, and he begged him not to leave. The question is that if you know that Imam Hussein is truthful in his movement, then why don't you join him and you will be able to influence the rest in return, yes? So that third side, always the first group of the third side, it always existed, and it still does. And the second group, as we said, is the side that simply, or the group that simply does not care who's on truth and who's on falsehood. This is indeed the most complex, yes? And this is the one that you should expect anything from them. And one of the signs of characters that do come from this mindset is that they always fluctuate. They can never have a clear position. You can never really understand what they really want or which side are they on. Take, for example, Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Marwan ibn al-Hakam, who later on, of course, became a Khalifa in Islam, he was in the army of Sayyida Aisha and Jamal. He was in the army of also within the army was Talha and Zubayr. And what he was seen when the two armies engaged in battle, he was seen standing afar on top of a hill, and he was shooting arrows on both camps, subhanallah. His servant was confused. He looked at him and he said, which side are you really on? Are you on the side of Talha, Zubair and Aisha? Or are you on the side of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? You're shooting arrows at both camps. He replied by saying, أَيْنَمَا أَصَابَتْ فَتْحٍ, meaning wherever it goes, it's considered a victory indeed. Can you imagine? Is that he was considering it a form of victory. Meaning this person didn't really care how many Muslim souls would die, that as long as to him is that the main enemy were both camps, not only one camp, even though he was considered one of the main characters that fueled the war against Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salam alayhi, as soon as he was given bay'ah. Yet to him, that he was shooting arrows at both camps. That is even documented that even Talha died by one of the arrows of Marwan ibn al-Hakam. That's one. A persona that's always fluctuating. You can never know that they're stable. You can never really indicate what do they really want in every conflict. Yes, take another example of this persona, Sheikh ibn Rib'i. We all know that Sheikh ibn Rib'i was the one who stabbed Imam Hussein salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi in his liver when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was lying down in the land of Karbala. If you look into the biography of Sheikh ibn Rib'i, he was also considered of that second group. Sheikh ibn Rib'i was a Muslim. Then he became a murtad. He became an apostate. Yes? And he was considered the mu'adhin of Sajah, the one who claimed to be a messenger after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was a woman by the name of Sajah that as soon as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, she claimed to be also a messenger of Allah. Sheikh ibn Rib'i was her mu'adhin. Then he repented and he converted to the religion of Islam. And his stance was always in support of the three khulafa. Yet, when the Egyptians and the Muslims revolted against Uthman, what happened is that he joined that revolution. Yes? Then he repented apparently. And then he joined the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam in Siffin. Imagine. When he joined the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam in Siffin, he also, as soon as Amr ibn al-As lifted up, he came up with the idea to lift up the Quran on top of the spears when they realized they were losing the war. Sheikh ibn Rib'i was one of the people that turned against Imam Ali alayhi salam and with the Khawarij, yes? And then apparently he repented and he left the Khawarij. And then he was one of the people that wrote letters to Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Kufa, asking him to rush to Kufa. And then where do you see Sheikh ibn Rib'i at the end? He was one of the people that killed Imam Hussein on the land of Karbala. And this to show you that such a confusing character, such a persona that always fluctuates, does not have a clear position, that's a very dangerous one. And therefore you should always expect throughout reading in history, or even in our modern days, that these are the personas that you should always open question marks about. As not the ones that might be considered your enemies. That the ones that might be considered your enemies are clear. They're right in front of you. Isn't it? And I remember a really interesting quote in one of the interviews. Malcolm X was asked, is that what do you find the differences between the Republicans and the Democrats? He said something interesting. He said, in the US of course, he said that the Republicans are like the wolf. You know that they're your enemy. They want to come and eat your food and they're right in your face. Yet the Democrats are like the hound. They come and they tell you that we love you. We want to fight for you as you're a minority. When in reality, they're just trying to sweet talk you, but at the end they also do want your food, isn't it? And you've noticed that third group or that second group in the third side always existed and it still does. And these personas played a very important role in events when it comes to Islamic history. And one shouldn't really play down their roles. And inshallah we shall find out later on within this lecture, is that how is it that one of them had also an important role in the murder of Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And that's why when we look back into Tabuk, we would notice that that third side that stayed behind had a further plot. And in order for us to discuss this further, let's move to our second point. As we said, is that what was the significance of the Battle of Tabuk and what are the important events that occurred in the Battle of Tabuk? You see, the Battle of Tabuk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah At-Tawbah in numerous verses, he dissects what really occurred during the Battle of Tabuk, and even after Rasulullah returned from the Battle of Tabuk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the verse that we started with in Surah At-Tawbah, verse number 47, what does he say? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. لو خرجوا فيكم ما زادوكم إلا خبالا ولا أوضعوا خلالكم يبغونكم الفتنة. He's referring to that third side, is that the Prophet ﷺ urged them to join and they didn't want to. The reply in the Quran from Allah, focus on this beautiful reply. What does it say? It says, had they gone forth with you, they would have only added to your troubles. That's the interesting part, is that what Allah is saying is that the third side in every conflict, in fact, they would only add to your trouble if they were to be with you. Why? Because they're not firm in their belief. They're not steadfast in their application. And therefore, they would only add to your trouble. They would be like a burden. And this is the interesting part. Notice what Imam Hussein said before he left to Karbala. Is that many people ask, is that possible or is it logical that Imam Hussein announces his uprising in Mecca in front of thousands upon thousands of Muslims, and he only ends up with 72 men on the land of Karbala? Imam Hussein had a condition on the land of Karbala, and that condition is extremely hard to attain. Yes, he wanted certain characteristics in his companions. He said, ألا من كان فينا باذلا مهجته موطنا على لقاء الله نفسه فليرحم معنا. Right? He said that there are conditions that I want with my followers. Is that this is an uprising that shall turn and change the phase of history. And therefore, I want two main conditions with my companions. Is that أَلَا مَنْ كَانَ فِينَا بَاذِلًا مُهْجَتُهُ, meaning the one that is rooted upon sacrificing himself for a righteous cause. مُوَطِّنًا عَلَى لِقَاءِ اللَّهِ نَفْسُهُ, and also trained himself upon meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then let him come with us. And that's why those personas that were present on the land of Karbala are still remembered until this day. That you would notice that those martyrs, may Allah bless their souls, the ones that gave the best of the examples when it comes to self-sacrifice for a righteous cause, right? Such as Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, and such as Habib ibn al-Mudahib, and Muslim ibn Awsaja, and Abis, and Abbas alayhi salam, Ali al-Akbar. You would notice that these people were rooted upon the concept of sacrifice. So sometimes you need companions that do believe in that movement, rather than having a lot of them. Yet, some of them are not rooted upon the concept of sacrifice. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said this. He said they would have only added to your troubles. And then he continued. And he said, and they would have surely spread rumors in your midst. And here, let's open up a question mark. Is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that they will surely spread rumors amongst you? Meaning what? Is that third side, the neutral side, had a further plot in their mind, and therefore that if they were to come with you, they would only add to your misery, and then they would make sure to spread rumors. Rumors to do what? Rumors in your midst? Seeking to cause treason among you. SubhanAllah. So that means there was something else going on, and that's why Tabuk is a battle that needs to be dissected in details when it comes to the history of Islam. And indeed, it's really worth it to be dissected. Even though this is not our topic tonight in particular, and in details, let's touch upon certain events as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred to them as they would have only added to your troubles, and they will surely spread rumors seeking to cause treason. Right? You would notice that one of the main events that occurred during the Battle of Tabuk is that, first of all, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam announced publicly that he's marching to Tabuk. Is that normally Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what he does is that in every battle, he uses the factor of the secretive movement, is that he doesn't totally announce it, is that he marches, and then he uses the factor of surprise. Rasulullah ﷺ, when it came to the Battle of Tabuk, he openly announced it, publicly, saying that I shall march to Tabuk. Why? It is said that the Byzantine Empire, Rasulullah ﷺ basically received news that the Byzantine Empire gathered in Tabuk. They marched from Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and there were plans to invade Medina. And therefore Rasulullah ﷺ said that we should go and confront them in Tabuk. Now if you look into Tabuk, Tabuk is a city northwest of Hijaz, and in modern day, northwest of Saudi Arabia. So it's on the border of Jordan. Between Tabuk and Medina, there is almost 600 kilometers. Imagine. So it's a very long distance to cover by an army, especially back in the days. Rasulullah ﷺ openly said that. Now, there started happening, some rumors started being spread inside Medina. Is that the first thing that happened? Is that many of them stayed behind. Many people decided to stay behind. And it was shocking. Some of them were even mentioned in the Holy Quran. And if you would look back into Surah At-Tawbah, look into the story of the three repenters in Surah At-Tawbah, right? And then, as we said earlier, is that it is narrated that the amount of people that stayed behind in Medina, and even many of them were companions of the Prophet ﷺ, was almost 30,000 companions. That they're the ones who decided to stay behind. They didn't leave with Rasulullah ﷺ. Now here, there were many events that started occurring, and all of them, they were aiming to the same cause. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse, what does He say? He says, have they gone forward with you? They would have only added to your trouble, and they would have surely spread rumors in your midst, seeking to cause treason among you. They have spies, and then He continues by saying, وَفِيكُمْ سَمَّعُونَ لَهُمْ. They have spies among you. Subhanallah. Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clearly saying that there are also spies among your companions, Ya Muhammad. Isn't it interesting? Is that we come and we say, it is illogical to say that all the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are all adul, they're all just. Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is exposing some of them as being munafiqeen, and some of them as even being spies. Spies to who? Spies to the Roman Empire, of course. Why? The second important event that occurred during the Prophet ﷺ departure to Tabuk, what happened is that there was something called Masjid Dirar. As that people came to the Prophet ﷺ and they asked permission from him to build a masjid close to Masjid Quba, right? Why? They gave several reasons. This is not our point of our discussion. Yet, that Masjid Dirar was later exposed as a masjid of mischief. That masjid of mischief, who was behind it? A monk by the name of Abu Amir. Abu Amir was a person that apparently was considered a religious figure. I gave a biography about Abu Amir, I think, in previous lectures when it comes to the Masjid of Dirar. Abu Amir was a person who was considered a pious person in the days of Jahiliyyah. And he was awaiting the appearance of the Prophet ﷺ, the beginning of the da'wah. Long story short, he did not believe in the message of Rasulullah ﷺ, and he fled to the Byzantine Empire. He was considered a very strong ally to the Byzantine Empire. And then he was in contact with some companions in Medina. And he asked them to build a masjid, right? And then obviously that masjid was considered the headquarters for his movement. And it was considered an intelligence agency for the Roman Empire inside the Medina. And that was the second main event. Is that those events that happened one after the other made Rasulullah ﷺ open up many question marks, and therefore he took certain procedures, right? So what happened is that, and subhanAllah, he gave them the permission and he let them build the masjid, and all simply so Rasulullah ﷺ can expose the further plan that they were planning. And then what happened is that the masjid was being built, and there were, as we said, is that he was in contact with a lot of hypocrites inside the Medina. So the plot behind it was what? Was literally to overthrow the Islamic government inside the Medina. Mainly that Rasulullah ﷺ is going to be away from the Medina. And how away? 600 kilometers away. Subhanallah, right? And therefore you would notice that was the second plot. And by the way, one of the companions of Rasulullah ﷺ by the name of Ka'b ibn Malik. Ka'b ibn Malik, he narrates a narration himself. He said, when I stayed behind in Medina, and I didn't live with the Prophet, one day I was sitting inside the market, and then a messenger came to me and he gave me a letter from the governor of the Roman Emperor in Sham. What does the letter say? It says, now that your friend has abandoned you, So why don't you join us, and then you shall have what you wish, and start preparing for the future. SubhanAllah, what future? He said, at this point I realized that there is even a further plot. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran that they have spies among you. Yes? Well, that's a very interesting thing. The third most important event that occurred in Tabuk was, do not forget that the Prophet ﷺ, before he left, he made sure to appoint Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam inside the Medina. And this was considered one of the only battle that Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam did not take a part in. And what occurred at this point is that the hypocrites of the Medina, they also tried to provoke Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. And we'll get to this point inshallah. Yet, what I want you to focus on is the last two events that occurred. There are two events that occurred during the Prophet ﷺ when he was returning back from Tabuk. There was an assassination attempt on Rasulullah ﷺ himself in Aqaba. And go look into the details, yes? To the point that Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman openly says that I recognize them one after the other, almost 15 companions, that they tried to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ. At the same time, there was an assassination attempt on Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And here, my humble question is that if Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was not considered the second in command after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, why would they try to assassinate him in Medina? Yes? As you know, some schools of thought, what they claim is that no, Ali ibn Abi Talib was not always the closest to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He wasn't the second man that you claim he is. But on the other hand, is that why wouldn't they try to assassinate other companions? Right? Is that it is logical that when you want to overthrow a government, what you do is that you try to get rid of the leader and the second in command after the leader. And that's why there was an assassination attempt on both Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam at the same time. But subhanAllah, both of them failed. Yes? And then what happened in this point? Therefore, you would notice there's a reason as to why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam left Imam Ali alayhi salam in Medina in command. And when the munafiqeen came to Rasulullah, to Imam Ali alayhi salam, provoking him as to look what Rasulullah did to you, he left you in Medina. Imam Ali alayhi salam wanted to make a statement. So what he did, and this moves us to our third point. What was the main important hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said? What he did is that Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he followed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he told him, Ya Rasulullah, people in Medina are saying that you have left me with the women and the children. Is that why don't you want me to come with you? And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam made a statement. He gave a hadith. It says, Oh Ali, your rank in relation to me is that of Harun in relation to Musa, except that there is no prophet after me. You see, here, I would like to focus a bit on this hadith. You see, a lot of us, and of course, we focus a lot on Ghadir, and of course, Ghadir is basically the most important narration that directly Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam appoints Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam as a successor after him. Yet, when you look into Hadith al-Manzila, one, you realize that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said Hadith al-Manzila in different occasions, not only in Tabuk. Is that he said it in Badr, in Khaybar, in Tabuk as we mentioned, in Mubahala, in Hujjatul Balagh, or what's referred to as Hujjatul Wada', and then even in Ghadir Khum, he implemented that understanding that Ali ibn Abi Talib to me is the same way Harun was to Musa. They're the same exact rank. Now I want you to focus a bit in history and notice that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what he was trying to do in this case is that he was literally trying to implement so many further meanings from this narration. Is that one, that when I leave, my second in command would be Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And when there's a state of fitna and there's a foreign threat against the religion of Islam, it is only Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam that can control the situation. And he is the only one that can lead in a case of fitna, right? Because as we said earlier, is that there was a plot against the religion of Islam from the Roman Empire to overthrow the Islamic government, right? And therefore you would notice that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was aware of this plot and he kept Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. There's always a further plan than what we think it is. And by the way, just a question mark that I would like to open in this, is that if you look into the situation during Tabuk, compare them to the same situation that was occurring during the Prophet ﷺ when he was on his deathbed. Yes, in Saqifa. What happened is what? You look, there's almost a lot of similarities between the two. Is that first, you would notice that Rasulullah ﷺ, he left with an army in Medina and he cut Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. When the Prophet ﷺ was on his deathbed, what did he do? He asked that all the Muslims to join the army of Usama ibn Zayd to fight who in Qadisiyah, again upon rumors that the Roman army is almost on the outskirts of Medina, right? And that's why Rasulullah ﷺ, he urged all the companions, and he said it is incumbent upon every companion to join the army of Usama ibn Zayd and leave with Usama ibn Zayd, except for Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Yes? Second is that there are many question marks that you would open. Is it possible that during Saqifa, what's narrated, almost only 4 or 7 companions at the most were able to control the Ansar, even though we all know that the position of the Ansar was against what was going on in Saqifa? Or was there a hidden force that was supporting those companions? And of course, these are question marks in history. We don't have absolute truth, or not even tonight, inshallah. This is not our main concern. Yet, always draw the similarity. Yet, what happened in Saqifa is that the dethroning of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was indeed successful. And therefore, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said what? In Tabuk, he said, عَلِيٌّ مِنِّي بِمَنْزِلَةِ هَارُونَ مِنْ مُوسَى إِلَّا أَنَّهُ لَا نَبِيَّ بَعْدِي. That's the first meaning. The second one is that when you look into the history of Nabi Musa alayhi salam and Nabi Harun, you would notice that after the death of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, what happened? Was Harun given the leadership after Nabi Musa alayhi salam? No. It was the family of Musa al-Imran that they claimed that the Khilafah is our right and not yours, subhanallah. And that's why they were not given their right, they were not given their haqq. And even after Harun, because if you would notice, between Nabi Musa alayhi salam and Nabi Isa alayhi salam, there's almost about 1,450 years, almost. Yes, now in those years, all the descendants of Harun were killed, one after the other, ending with who? With Nabi Yahya and Nabi Zakaria, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim. Yes? And then therefore you would notice that that was a plot. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was saying what to the Muslims? Is that whatever occurred in history with Harun would be repeated with my successor, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And that's why Hadith al-Manzila is very important. And it is indeed worthy to dissect from many angles. And that's our third point. Our fourth point of the discussion tonight is that what would it lead us to? Understanding is that what was the motive behind the murder of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Is that when we look into all the factors above, you would realize that in the conflicts that occurred, even during the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was always an attempt to keep Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam away from that position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam appointed him in. Yes? And notice, subhanallah, there are many incidents in history that if you were to focus on, you would know that if there was not a type of hatred towards Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, there was at least a type of envy towards Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, even during the life of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now focus on the persona like Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. Yes? Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. There's even a narration by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that says that to every messenger there's an apostle, and Zubayr is my apostle. Yet what happened to Zubayr? You see, one of the interesting incidents that occurred is that on the battlefield in Jamal, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam called Zubayr. And he said, Zubayr, come to me. And then he reminded him of an incident that occurred during the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Zubayr, do you remember when I came back from Ghazwat Dhatus Salasil? That you looked at Rasulullah when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came down from his horse and he came to my reception. You looked at Rasulullah and you said, Ali ibn Abi Talib is a show-off. Look at the way he's walking. And then Rasulullah looked at you and he said, Uskut, be quiet. But then he repeated it again. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told you, Uskut ya Zubayr. Showing off or walking proudly is not something that is loved by Allah. Yet, the walk of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in this case is considered a ibadah. And note, Zubayr, that there will come a day that you will be fighting Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, yet you will be on the unjust side. You will be the oppressor of Ali. Yes? And that's what really caused Zubayr. Again, when we talk about that third party, it's really interesting that Zubayr, after he was reminded of this, he decided to leave both camps. He didn't even join the camp of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Even though it would have made a big difference to the army that was fighting Ali ibn Abi Talib on Jamal at that time. Yeah, Zubayr left both camps, yes. Notice that many incidents occurred during the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you would notice that there was an ideology being prepared against Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. In many situations, take for example what occurred in the Shura after the second Khalifa. When the second Khalifa Umar al-Khattab was on his deathbed, what he did is that he gathered companions and he made the Shura between them. And you notice Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says in Nahj al-Balagha, فَيَا لَلَّهِ وَلِلشُّورَى مَتَى اعْتَرَضَ الرَّيْبُ فِيَّ مَعَ الْأَوَّلِ مِنْهُمْ حَتَّى صُرْتُ أُقْرَنُ إِلَى هَذِهِ النَّظَائِرِ. Is that, good heavens, what did I have to do with this shura, with this consultation? When was there any doubt in regards to me when it comes to the first one of them? That now I have to be compared with these ones, with these examples. Imagine. And this is why that there was an ideology that helped into establishing the hatred towards Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So that was one of the first reasons that helped into the killing of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. But even at the Battle of Jamal himself, yes, it was narrated that the wife of the Prophet was sitting on the camel and then she would put her hand outside the carriage with bags of money and she would openly say, "Man minkum ya'tini bi ra's al-asla'." Is that which one of you can bring me the head of the bald one? Ali ibn Abi Talib she's referring to. Yes? Imagine. So there was this sense of ideology. You can see that the Islamic Ummah was moving towards that part. And that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Aliyu minni bimanzilati Harun min Musa." Is that reflect on what happened with Nabi Musa, with Nabi Harun alayhi salam. And the same thing shall occur with Imam Ali alayhi salam. So we realize that there are factors that indeed push towards the killing of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. It actually encouraged people to take that stance against Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Or else, why would the Khawarij say that we cannot fight the Quran? Imam Ali alayhi salam would tell them, I am the spoken Quran. I am the Quran al-Natiq. And this is a trick by Bani Umayyah. What did they say? They said, no, we cannot do that. No. Shallow thinking is one of the most dangerous things in religiosity. It's that people that are shallow thinkers, they refuse to look into deep. Yes? Notice that these, for example, that was the first factor. And then when we look into the murder of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, yes, it was by Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam. Yet, was it only Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam? And was it only that Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam plotted to kill Ali ibn Abi Talib? And why is that? Well, let's look into the narration about that. It is narrated that Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam, in the year of 39 Hijri, he went and he performed Hajj. The narration says that he met with two other people, both of them were from Bani Tamim. Yet, the funny part is that both of them are not even mentioned in the narration that shall come after. For instance, apparently what they did is that they sat down and they cried over what happened to the Khawarij in Nahrawan, and then they made a covenant between each other, and they said that they came up to the conclusion that the issue of the Ummah and the main problem of the Islamic Ummah is from three. The first one is Imam Ali, and the second one is Muawiyah, and the third one is Amr ibn al-As. So they agreed that Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam would go to Kufa and assassinate Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. And then the second one would go to Ash-Sham and assassinate Muawiyah, and the third shall go to Egypt and assassinate Amr ibn al-As. Now when we look into this, into the assassination attempt on Muawiyah, first of all, we do not have a clear narration that indicates in particular who attempted to assassinate Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. It's not even narrated. We don't even know who he is. Some narrations suggest that no, in fact those three that made a covenant around the Kaaba were actually the brothers of Abdurrahman ibn Maljam. Yes, some of them say that no, it wasn't even his brothers, but they were two from Bani Tamim. Some say that they were from the remains of the Khawarij. There are many contradicting narrations about this incident. And the funny part is that what happened is that even the details of the assassination isn't clear. Some suggest that Muawiyah didn't even leave to pray. He didn't even leave to pray Fajr on this day. Yes? And some even suggest that no, in fact Muawiyah was stabbed, but then he turned around and he killed his killer, that assassin, right? And then some even suggest that no, he just punished him, he cut his hand and his leg, but then he was killed later on by Ziyad ibn Abi when he became the governor of Kufa. So many question marks and many contradicting details that really do not make any sense. The second assassination attempt was about who? Was on who? Amr ibn al-As. Apparently also that same day, Amr ibn al-As had a stomach ache and he couldn't leave to the masjid to pray Fajr. And therefore, he brought a person by the name of Kharija, which is also considered a companion, and then he made him wear his own cloak and his amama and lead Fajr. And some suggest that Kharija was killed in return. Yet was it totally confirmed? No. That's the thing. On the other hand, you would also notice that even Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam himself, is that what was the motive? Is that when we look into this Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam, the first thing that we need to ask ourselves is that what would really push him to kill a man like Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam? Why? You see, the first thing that comes to our mind is that yes, well obviously because he was from the Khawarij. When we look into the biography of Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam, we would notice that he might have been from the Khawarij in terms of aqidah, meaning in terms of thought. Yes, maybe in terms of belief. And that's not even totally confirmed, by the way, that he was not absolutely from the Khawarij. Second is that the first narration says that they wanted to avenge the ones that died, the death of the ones that died in Nahrawan. Yet you look at Abdul Rahman bin Maljam, he wasn't even in Nahrawan. He didn't take a part in Nahrawan. And none of the battles of the Khawarij. He's not even mentioned to be one of them in particular. Yes? Apparently that's one of the motives. The second motive, they say what? They say it's simply because of the love of Qatam. Yes? They say that, you know what? Qatam was a very beautiful woman in Kufa. And her father and her two brothers were killed in Nahrawan. And she wanted to avenge the death of her family. And when Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam saw her, he fell in love with her. And then she said that my dowry is the head of Imam Ali. Yes? But then the same narration suggests that Abdul Rahman looked at her and he said, well, if I'm going to wait until I kill Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib and then come back to you with that dowry, no, obviously I wouldn't be able to marry you. Because what will happen in this case is that I will be captured, and in return I will be killed. Right? So that didn't make any sense in that sense. And then there's even a third motive that says no, it was a tribal vengeance. Meaning what? Is that Bani Murad, they took a part in the wars, be it in Jamal, Safi and Nahrawan, and then in return many of them were killed by Ali ibn Abi Talib, and they just wanted to avenge the death, and he wanted to avenge the death of members of his own tribe. But that also does not make any sense, because there's even greater tribes in Kufa that also took a part in those wars, yet none of them really attempted the assassination of Ali ibn Abi Talib in that sense, right? And even though you would look into basically some of the details of the whole incident, like for example, Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam, When he arrived to Kufa, he didn't tell any of the Khawarij of his intention. So none of the Khawarij, even the remaining of the Khawarij, did not take a part with Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam. Yes? And then the big question mark that we shall open is that, as we said, there are many factors, is that the ideology that implemented the hatred of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the Umayyad dynasty, beginning from Muawiyah and even before Muawiyah, of always trying to separate Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam from every virtue that was given to him by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yes? That was literally forming a school of thought that is based upon the hatred of the Ahlul Bayt, to the point that is even narrated in history, that some people from Sham used to think that Ahlul Bayt were actually Bani Umayyah, or Muawiyah and his children. Imagine. Yes? And then you would notice that all these factors combine, and then there's that last factor, that when Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam arrived to Kufa, is that he didn't stay at any of the homes of the Khawarij. Yet he stayed at the house of Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi. Who was Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi again? As we said in the introduction of our lecture tonight, is that always focus on that third side, for indeed it is the most dangerous one of them. That's the side that you should always expect things from them that you can never imagine, yes? I'm sure all of us throughout our life have been put in this situation, right? As that be people that are close to us, friends, family members, people in society, that they know the truth where it is, yet they refuse to speak, and they always say that I like to stay in the middle. I like to take that neutral position. I like just to be good with everybody. SubhanAllah. There's a narration by Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He says what? He says, look at a man in society. If you see him befriending opposite groups in society, then be aware of that man. SubhanAllah. Yes? Take a side at least, even if it was against, or even if it was the side of the, let's say for instance, if it was the side of falsehood, but at least be clear. Be clear of who you are. So you will notice that Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi, Ash'ath ibn Qais was a kafir who fought the Muslims, and then again what happened is that he became an apostate, became a murtad, and then he repented during the reign of the first Khalifa Abu Bakr. And then during the reign of Uthman, he was appointed as the governor of Uthman ibn Affan on Azerbaijan. Yes? And then he was one of the people that split from the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And again, another question mark that we would open is that as soon as the Quran was lifted on top of the spears, right away Ash'ath ibn Qais was the first one to say that, you know what? We should not fight the opposite party anymore. That's it. And then he really basically influenced the Khawarij to split from the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Yet, he didn't join the Khawarij. Yes, that's Ash'ath ibn Qais. Ash'ath ibn Qais is the father of Ju'ada, the wife of Imam al-Hasan sallallahu alayhi, one who poisoned Imam al-Hasan. Yes, Ash'ath ibn Qais is also the father of Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath, that directly also cooperated with the killing of Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the land of Karbala. And even all his sons were in the army of Yazid. Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam chose to stay at the house of Ash'ath ibn Qais at this point. And therefore, we shall indeed open up many question marks on this. The relationship between Ash'ath ibn Qais and Muawiyah was very strong. In fact, he had absolutely strong relation with Muawiyah and Amr ibn al-As. Yes? Another narration says what? Is that when Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam woke up that day on Fajr, or when he was still sleeping, Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais told him indirectly, An-Najah, meaning what? Meaning hurry up, rush before the sunrise. Meaning what? Meaning hurry up with what you're planning for. So basically Ash'ath ibn Qais knew of the plot of Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam. And even when you study the character of Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam himself, you will notice that it is very far that a person like Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam would be able to plan such an assassination without help from be it Ash'ath ibn Qais or even Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Because again, the theatrical assassination attempts that apparently occurred, and maybe Amr ibn al-As. And that's why you would notice that one of the two, mainly two companions of Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, Hijr ibn Adi, he directly accuses Ash'ath ibn Qais. And he said that the blood of Ali ibn Abi Talib was on your hands. And then Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali, a companion of Imam Amir al-Mu'minin salawatullah wa salam alayhi, also what he does is that he also accuses Muawiyah. He has a couplet of poetry where he directly says that now tell the son of Hind that Ali ibn Abi Talib is dead, so now you shall be happy, you shall be happy indeed. And that's why Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam al-Muradi, when he come and he study that what he did was indeed out of different motives, and there are many factors that helped him kill Imam Amir al-Mu'minin salawatullahi wa salam alayhi. And what a crime did he indeed commit, Allahu Akbar, is that it is even considered the second most worst tragedy after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As I swear to you that if only Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam agreed to rule according to what the people wanted, and believe it or not, he would have stayed alive. But Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, just like the rest of Bani Hashim, and the rest of the Imams, and the children of Abu Talib alayhi salam, he was rooted upon sacrifice, knowing that a day will come that he shall pay the price of his justice, the price of his religiosity, the price of his sincerity, that shall be paid by blood. Because indeed the people could not handle the justice of Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. Yes? And it is narrated that on such night, Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he sat for iftar, he was looking at the sky. He was saying, indeed, this is the night that Rasulullah has promised me. Yes. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, it is such an honor to begin in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you're born in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you are killed in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best of ibadat and in the best unit of the best of ibadah, which is sujood. What more honor do you want than this? Yes. It is narrated that Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, he marched towards the masjid. And when he was marching towards the masjid, it is said that as soon as he left his house, his cloak got stuck on the gate, and then he chanted a couplet of poetry, saying that this cloak, oh, let the cloak set free, or set the cloak free, for indeed death is coming to you. Yes. And as soon as he entered the masjid, he woke up people for some nafilatul fajr. And when he woke up the people for nafilatul fajr, one of them was Abdul Rahman, sleeping on his stomach. And he told him, do not sleep on your stomach, for this is the type of the ones, or this is the type of the sleeping of the evil ones, the ones who are planning something. Yes. And then he stood and he did his takbir, and he started with his salat. And the narration says that when Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam lifted up his head from the sujood, he was met by the sword of Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam, striking the back of his head. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam fell forward, and then he said out loud, Fustu wa Rabbul Kaaba, successful I am by the Lord of the Kaaba. Which Lord? Ali, the Lord that took care of me, the Lord that nurtured me, the Lord that hosted me in the Kaaba and my mother for 3 days. Ya Ali, he said,
sword of Abdul Rahman ibn Maljam al-Muradi. Sayyida Zainab looks at Ali approaching, and it's as if she can foresee what shall occur in the land of Karbala when the Bani Hashim were carrying the body of Ali al-Akbar, marching towards the tents. The narration says that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, while he was carrying Ali al-Akbar, the legs of Ali al-Akbar were dragging behind him, and then he saw Sayyida Zainab leaving the tent, rushing to the battlefield upon hearing that Ali al-Akbar was killed. The narration says that Imam Hussein alayhi salam loved the body of Ali al-Akbar, and then he said to the Bani Hashim, carry my son Ali, and he rushed towards Sayyida Zainab. He said, oh my sister Zainab, I can handle my son being killed, cut off into pieces on the land of Karbala, yet I cannot handle you leaving your tent and exposing yourself to my enemies while I still live. And it's as if that Zainab alayhi salam was rooted upon masa'ib, a tragedy after the other, the attack on the house of Fatima, the poison of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, the killing of her father Ali, and the killing of her brother Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and her children, her nephews, and her brother Abbas. Abbas, the one that when Imam Ali alayhi salam was on his deathbed, he carried the hand of Zainab and the hand of Abbas, and he put the hand of Abbas in the hand of Zainab, and he looked at Abbas and he said, oh my son Abbas, this is my trust with you. Oh Abbas, make sure to be the supporter of Zainab. Oh yeah Ali, indeed Abbas did his best, yet when Abbas was returning, he was also striked on his head, the same way you were striked on your head.
إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم لعن قتلة أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام.